February 28th, 2012. We got some good weather coming in finally. We might even get some snow. Record high temperature last week. It's pretty dry. Had another conversation with a friend who came over yesterday that it seemed to me to be very productive because he and I have been working on coming to terms with uh, the events of our life. Certain events can really just blow us away. And he and I had similar experiences. Uh, but I realized really early on that his was not so much a coming to terms with, so much as going to blows with. Really just getting in there and not surrendering, not accepting certain things. I, on the other hand, though it felt good for a period of time to really say up yours to life, and certain circumstances, certain events, and certain people, I realized, and I've always done this, is that I can only sustain my my anger for a certain amount of time, and then something arises inside of me. Perspectives arise inside of me. Some might call it compassion or empathy, but perspectives arise in my mind, and those perspectives enable me to be released from the tension of anger. It's the perspective of walk a mile in your moccasins kind of thing. Perspectives like that arise, and then an understanding comes. And in the understanding, I'm relieved of the tension produced by the anxiety that accompanies anger. Uh, but being that I'm a pretty mellow guy and don't really get into conflicts that much, because I can resolve them in my own mind depending upon perspectives, and when I shift my perspective, I can see um, different you know, different perspectives. I can see it from a different light. And I don't know where I was going with that, except that today it was very clear to me that our conversation yesterday, I made it very clear that being possessed by things can cause us to lose our detachment and ability to observe our own behavior. And being able to step back, detach, and observe our own behavior enables us to regulate and moderate um, ourselves, what we say, what we do. Uh, and this being possessed can very often feel magical. And people often want to be possessed by the positive and exorcise or condemn to hell the negative feelings. He asked me to try to remember. He asked me what it was, one of my sayings. I said, He said something about the original something or other. I said, oh, the original intoxicants were tears of joy and tears of laughter. And in relationship to what we were talking about, feelings being closest to that metaphysical root source of our being, that in that source, the tears of joy and the tears of laughter are unified and one. And the intoxication of becoming possessed, the intoxication of possession, can relieve us of the stress, the tension that is produced by detaching and observing ourselves. It is a state of tension to detach ourselves from our experience and observe it. A tension of mind. I'm using these terms in relationship to Oswald Spengler's ideas. I like the way he described it, sort of bottom line, simplistic, straightforward, though very complex. I think Carl Jung was also influenced by him in some ways. But this state of tension itself can be intoxicating. Taking self-responsibility and self-accountability and for all of our behavior, all of our phrases and terms. But this is key, is that we categorize and compartmentalize with terms and phrases the valuations we make of things. And if we have an experience that doesn't fit into the little compartments and categories of our perspective, we can often want to just throw them off as completely of no value at all, because they threaten the stability of mind and body that we try to sustain. And I see a great many of these things occurring with my friend's explanations of things. And oftentimes, when I first met him, it was quite interesting because he had a well-developed metaphysical conception of the world through his experience and his teachings, his learnings. And that was fine for a while, but then I realized that there were many things that he could not integrate. There were many aspects of our studies that just went in one ear and out the other. And I didn't understand why this was, and as I've gotten to know him, I realized there are certain experiences he just does not have the ability to integrate. And recently I've come to understand that I think, and I told him this, that it's just one possible perspective, that he had some traumatic experiences that were the prime cause of naturally arising feelings that were very painful, very uncomfortable, that he didn't want to experience, and so he shut himself off from those. And I went on to explain that by shutting off part of our feelings does not allow the other part of our feelings to be well balanced. We understand the good in relationship to the bad. The value of the good stems directly from the bad. So the worse things get, the more value the good things and the positive things have. And I think this is a natural balancing process in the mind and in the body. But if we shut ourselves off from, say, some certain bad experiences, then the good experiences don't have anything to compare themselves to. So this idea of the mind of comparison and contrasting between the opposites becomes highly required, demanded, to have a well-rounded view. And a few months ago, a couple of years ago, a year ago, I was telling him, explaining about some studies we had made in Joseph Campbell about going through the middle. We have to go through the clashing rocks and past them. And the clashing rocks are the dualities, or duadities, that I like to call them, and or the contrary antipathies of what James Joyce termed. And also in reference to Campbell, I used the, I think it was Wolfram von Eckenbach that was quoted by Campbell. It said something about, we are like a magpie's plumage, mixed both of dark and light. I tend towards the light. To try to elaborate and give form to these perspectives. But recently, I've been trying to show him the conception and bring form to this conception in his mind to the point of where it holds some water, that it can integrate some perspectives and experiences about how he may have shut off certain feelings, and that because he shut off certain feelings, he cannot truly read those people he thinks he can trust, and then these people hurt him, and he wants to blame them, and ultimately it was his choice to trust them, to value them,